Right, all right, all right, all right. This is not ESPN's 30 for 30. However, it is my 98 for 98. The 98 seasons in the history of the New York Football Giants. Going to try to get it done in 98 days. Probably not going to happen, but I am going to get it done before September 10th, which is when the New York Giants take on the Dallas Cowboys to start the 2023 NFL season. So we're at the last year of the 80s. It's been a glorious, decade, shall we say. We won our first Super Bowl. Bill Parcells is the commander in chief. This is his, we got to be his seventh season, I believe, 83, 84, 85, 86, 87, 88, 89. So this is his seventh season. 1990 would be his final season, eighth and final season coaching the Giants. This is the 89th. 1989 is the 65th season in the history of the Giants. It's the 70th season in the history of the NFL. The Giants started in 1925. NFL started in 1920, so the Giants are 5 years younger than the NFL is. Once again, I had my video last night. It was like two, basically, with Bill Parcells. 4, seasons were pretty much almost identical. 1983 and basically 83, 84, 85, 86 was pretty much almost identical to 87, 88, 89, and 90. 1983 and 1987, Bill Parcells and the Giants had a losing record. So then you got 84 and 88, they had winning records. Then 1985 and 89, winning records, back to the playoffs. The record was better. The record in 85 was better than it was in 84, and they went to the playoffs. The record in 89 was better than it was in 88. They went to the playoffs. Then, of course, you culminate in 1986 and in 1990, right? Super Bowl win. Just once again, this was it's all painful, pretty much, when you lose. This season ended with the old Flipper Anderson 30-yard. I think it was like a 30-yard touchdown reception. He beat Mark Collins down the right. It had like a half a step on him. Perfect pass by Everett. Let's see. Let me see if it was it exactly. Let's see here. Oops. Where are we at here? I think it was a 30-yard pass from Jim Everett. 30-yard pass, yeah, to Flipper Anderson. He had like, is down the right-hand side, had like half a step on Mark Collins. Perfect pass. Anderson's fast. He had a half a step or so on Mark Collins. Mark Collins dove for it at the last second. Anderson got it. It wasn't like he had him beat by 3 yards or nothing, but it was just a perfect pass. Great route, great catch. Decent coverage, but just wasn't meant to be. Flipper Anderson caught the ball, ran the end zone, ran through the tunnel, out of the stadium, and he ran all the way across the country back to he caught it. I guess it's lucky for him that I guess there wasn't a penalty called on the play, because he was like in the locker room. He just kept running up the tunnel, and he just kept running, I guess, to the locker room. But that was the playoff game the Giants lost. It was a tough one. It had the home field advantage. Wound up 13-13, headed into overtime, and the Rams were a decent team. Rams had a better passing offense than the Giants did, and that was one of the problems the Giants had quite often. They did not have elite wide receivers. They had their running game wasn't even super spectacular this year. Otis Anderson did have over 1,000 yards. However, he averaged well under 4 yards a carry. Once again, the defense carried the team pretty much. The defense gave up 15 points per game. Did a very, very good job, limiting the points given up. But the Giants, their offense, the Giants averaged 21.8 points per game, which is obviously is nothing super spectacular. Once again, they did not have a phenomenal, Phil Simms. He was 11-4. Completed 56% of his passes. He had 14 touchdowns. He had 14 interceptions. Jeff Hostetler, Jeff Hostetler started one game, and he had 3 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. So for the season, the Giants had 17 touchdown passes and 16 interceptions. I mean, threw for 3,355 yards. I mean, it was nothing. The defense did well. The defense only gave up 16 touchdown passes. They had 22 interceptions. So the defense helped keep the team in many, many games. But the Giants averaged 3.4 yards a carry. They had 118 yards a game rushing. They only gave up 96 because, once again, their defense kept them in the games. Giants had 17 rushing touchdowns. I said Otis Anderson had 14 of them, 14 of the 17 rushing touchdowns. Otis Anderson had 1,023 yards at 32 years old. He had 325 carries. At 32 years old, you get 325 carries, 14 touchdowns, 1,023 yards. Then the next season, he wins the Super Bowl. It's a Super Bowl. If you don't put this guy in the Hall of Fame, there's really something wrong. Really, really something wrong with the Hall of Fame. Let's see. Otis Anderson averaged 3.1 yards a carry. Lewis Tillman had 290 yards. He averaged 3.7 yards a carry. Maurice Carthon had 153 yards rushing. He averaged 2.7 yards a carry. Dave Meggett had 117 yards. He averaged 4.2 yards a carry. Lee Roussan had 51 yards. He averaged 4.6 yards a carry. George Adams, their number 1 pick from 1985, 9 carries, 29 yards. He averaged 3.2 yards a carry. I mean, their offense was just very, and it came back pretty much to bite them in the rear end in the playoff game against the Rams. I mean, the defense kept them in the game. The offense had 344 yards in the playoff game against the Rams, 173 yards pass and 171 yards rushing. Meanwhile, the Rams had 448 yards. They had 302 yards pass and 146 yards rushing. I mean, the Giants, they're just, once again, as quite often, they were outclassed on offense when they went up against, not all the time, but often when they went up against better, good offensive power teams. The Giants, obviously not many teams ever did, but, there was never anybody on the Giants offense, their wide receivers, who just put the fear of God into somebody. So, oh my God, that's Stephen Baker. We better triple cover that guy. Or, oh my God, there's Mark Ingram. Wow. We better double cover that. As I said, not many teams did, but there's no Jerry Rice or nothing like that. I said, once again, not many teams did, but there was no Odell Beckham Jr. really to scare anybody. And we had Mark Bavaro, but he's not scaring anybody. If you look at the Giants, for this stretch here, they scored 19 points, 20 points, 20 points, 24 points, 20 points, 10 points, 15 points, 24 points, 17 points, 14 points, 15 points. And then and they scored 34 against the Raiders, but 7 of that was a touchdown by Dave Meggett on a punt return. And then in the overtime playoff game, they scored 13 points. Somewhere along the line, scoring 20 points 10 games in a row or whatever is going to sooner or later come back to bite you when you play a really good team. The Rams were a very good team. You got to give the Rams all the credit in the world. In that playoff game, they hung around, and they did just enough to win. And although in the playoff game, there was I think it was on Sheldon White. I think it was. There was a pass interference call, which was like for 27 yards. Put the ball down around the 25-yard line of the Giants. It was a BS to me. Just trying to be honest and fair. Basically, it's pretty much set them up, put them in field goal range. I think it was a pretty bad call, but it is what it is. Give the Rams all the credit in the world. They hung around. They did what they had to do, and they got out of there with the victory. But unfortunately for them, the following week against the San Francisco 49ers would wind up being in the championship game. They lost 30-3. They were embarrassed big time. They had 9 first downs, had 156 yards of offense. They were embarrassed. I remember in that championship game, Jim Everett how many times did he get sacked? I mean, he was hearing things. One time he fell down on his own. How many times he get sacked? Oh, he only got sacked, one time. That was it. Well, he was 16 out of 36. He threw 3 interceptions, he had 140 130 yards. But I remember one time the Rams had 156 yards in this championship game. The 49ers had 442. They had almost 300 more yards. I mean, it was absolute. It was a joke. The Rams ran the ball 10 times to 26 yards. I wish they played like that against the Giants. But anyway, I remember in this championship game, one time Jim Everett went back to pass and he thought like somebody was like going to sack him or something like that. So he was like in the pressure was coming on him, but nobody touched him. And he was like looking around, and all of a sudden he just like crumbled to the ground. Nobody touched him, nothing. He just went down by himself. I guess he heard footsteps. I have no idea. He basically sacked himself. It was just such a joke to see them play like that. And after what they did with the Giants the week before, it was just. But anyway, I mean, the 49ers were a very good team, as we're going to see. They not only they beat the Rams, they killed the Rams in the championship game, but they killed the Broncos in the Super Bowl too. But let's start here with the Giants preseason. The Giants had another nice preseason once again. They started on August 12th against New England Patriots in Sullivan Stadium. They won 20-17. The following week in Arrowhead Stadium, they played the Chiefs on August 20th. They won 45-7 against the Chiefs. The following week against the Jets, the Giants went a little payback here because the Jets knocked the Giants out of the playoffs the last game of the 1988 season. So the Giants, it doesn't matter who the heck the home team was. They both play at Giants Stadium, but the Giants won 21-17. Then the final game of the preseason, the Giants lost to the Steelers at Giants Stadium 13-10. So the Giants had a very nice preseason at 3-1. Once again, they had a very nice regular season for the most part. I mean, they were 12-4, but once again, their defense carried them. But they did have a very, very nice draft. Very nice draft. So let's go here to the draft. And where we at here? Giants pick number 18 overall. They took in the 1989 draft. They took Brian Williams. Now he was a center. Okay, he would not take over the starting center role until Bart Oates left. I think after the '92 season. So Brian Williams, we drafted him. He was to be a center, and draftees. Let's see here. Let's see. I mean, he was with the Giants for a while, but let's see here. As I said, he coming out of college, he was a center, and after Bart Oates left, he became a center. But he didn't start until maybe Bart Oates left after the '93 season, because in '94 Bart Oates was part of the 49ers who won the Super Bowl. So we drafted Brian Williams, and he was a center, but basically the center. I guess he was a center maybe on special teams or so. In '89, he started 4 games. 1990, 91, he didn't start a game at all. 92 and 93, he started 1 game in each season. So first 5 seasons, we drafted this guy in the first round. Center, first round. His first 5 seasons, he started 6 games. I mean, but after that, then he had he played 4 additional after Bart Oates left. So in 94, 95, 96. And then he missed a couple of seasons. He came back in '99, and so he was the Giants center for 4 seasons. So, all in all, it was a nice pick. Nothing super spectacular, especially because we had a center, but we drafted Brian Williams, who was, I do believe, out of Minnesota, right? Yep, Minnesota. So this year we drafted a center out of where? Minnesota. So, So that was so once again, that was a nice pick. Nothing super spectacular, but a nice pick. But all in all, this was a very good draft for the Giants. Really helped set them up for the 1990 season. All right, so in the second round, trying to find them here because there was some trades here. Okay, the Giants. Let's see here. I know there was some. So the Giants in the second round, the Giants traded away their let's see. Third, fourth round pick, 7th round pick. So the Giants basically they traded away their pick to the Chargers in the second round. So the Giants didn't have a second round pick. So with that pick, the Chargers took Billy Joe Tolliver, that I believe is the quarterback. So the Giants did not have a second round pick. However, they started after this. They started, they basically they flip flopped. The Giants traded with the Chargers. The Giants traded away their second round pick, but they got the Chargers' third round pick. And with the Chargers' third round pick, the Giants selected Bob Cratch. Okay, so he was a decent offensive lineman for the Giants for quite a few years. Let's see. Then the Giants selected with their own pick, Greg Jackson. Now, he was with the Giants for quite some time. Well, actually, no. He had a long career. He played 12 seasons, four or five of them went with the Giants. But after that, I think he was with the Eagles and with the Chargers, I believe. But he had a nice long career. Bob Cratch played 8 seasons. Brian Williams played 9 seasons. The next guy they drafted played 7 seasons, but we're going to get to him in a second. But most of these guys in the 4th round, the Giants selected Lewis. Wait. Oh, they didn't have him. Hold on there. Interesting. Oh, okay. Oh, hold on. The Giants got the Chargers' 4th round selection. I do apologize. In the 1989 draft. So with the Chargers' 4th round selection, they did some trading back and forth, but the Chargers wound up getting Billy Joe Tolliver out of it. But the Giants with the Chargers' 4th round selection took Lewis Tillman, who was a decent running back. Unfortunately, he only played a few seasons for the Giants. I know most of his or decent. He played 7 seasons. I know quite a few of them were with the Bears. He played, oh no, my bad. He played 5 seasons with the Giants. I didn't know it was that long. He finished up with the Bears. His final 2 seasons were with the Bears. I thought he was with the Bears longer than that, but I'm wrong. So once again, he played 7 seasons in the NFL. Once again, a very nice draft pick. The Giants with their own pick in the 4th round took Brad Henke, a defensive end from Arizona. He played 1 season in the NFL. Not very good. However, the Giants would still have 3 additional good picks after this. A couple of them were wound up being very good picks after this. You'll know these guys' names here. All right, so in the 5th round, just want to make sure there's no more trades or this or that. Okay, the Giants with their 5th round selection took Dave Meggett, right? And he wasn't with the Giants the whole time, but he played 10 seasons in the NFL. He was a very good pick. Picked him in the 5th round from Townsend State. But I mean, great pick for the Giants in the 5th round. Okay, so and then it keeps on going. It keeps on going. The 6th round pick wound up being the Howard Cross. I mean, what was he? How many seasons? 13 seasons, 1989 to 2001. Let's see here. Dun, 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 dun. Yep. So I believe he was the only one on the Giants that was in the 1990 team and the 2000 team that went to both those Super Bowls. Unfortunately, one was a win, one was a massacre. But, Howard Cross, he played in, 207 games for the Giants. God bless you, brother. Thank you. Man, what a good blocker. Very good blocker. He wasn't much of a receiver. He only had 201 catches in his career, 17 touchdowns. I mean, not much, but he was a good blocker. He was a team player. He did what he had to do. Whatever was asked of him, he did. Then the Giants in the 7th round took Dave Pop, a tackle from Eastern Illinois. He never made it. But their next pick, in the 8th round, it took Myron Guyton, who played from East Kentucky. Now, he was 89 to 1995. Was it all with the Giants? Nope. 89 to 93. He was with the Giants. 94, 95. He probably went with Bill Parcells with the Patriots. That's where he finished his career at. 94, 95 was with the Patriots. He was a free safety. and that's when Parcells was with the Patriots. So that's why he probably joined Bill Parcells. So once again, Bill Parcells drafts you. If he likes you, the familiarity, he asks you to come and play for him. If Bill Parcells asks you to come play for him, guess what? You go and you play for the man. All right, so that was their 8th round pick. The 9th round, they took A.J. Green, who's a defensive back. He only played one season in the NFL. So, but once again, it's a 9th round pick. Their last 3 picks, 10th round, 11th round, 12th round, never even made it in the NFL. In the 10th round, they took Rodney Lowe, a defensive end from Mississippi. Never made it. Jerome Reinhardt, a linebacker, they took in the 11th round from University of Tennessee Martin. He never made it. And Eric Smith was a linebacker they took in the 12th round from UCLA. Once again, he never made it. But, I mean, if you look at this draft, I mean, Brian Williams, Bob Cratch, Greg Jackson, Louis Tillman, Dave Meggett, Howard Cross, and Myron Guyton. I mean, that's a nice haul. I mean, no Hall of Famers, but I mean, you got one guy that played 9 seasons, one who played 8, one who played 12, one who played 7, one who played 10 seasons, one who played 13 seasons, and another one played 7 seasons. That's a really good, solid draft. I said, once again, I don't know if any of those guys I don't think any were all pros, no Hall of Famers, nothing like that, but an overall very solid draft that added to the depth and the quality that they had on their team, which really also, in addition, helped them in the 1990, their Super Bowl season. So it was a very, very good draft for the Giants. So let's go now here to, as I kind of mentioned, I kind of went over a little bit here. Their offense was nothing super spectacular, although they averaged 21.8 points per game. But their defense was average. They gave up 15.8 points per game on defense, which was second in the NFL. Now, once again, it's a theory of relativity. Everything's all relative. If your offense is better, your defense is on the sideline, drinking Kool-Aid, not giving up any points, right? So if their offense was better, the offense would be on the field more, the defense would be on the sideline more, giving up less points. So, as I said, the Giants' offense was nothing, as quite often, it was nothing super spectacular. One of the problems the Giants had was they could not beat the Philadelphia Eagles from 1987, I think it was, to 89. Those 6 games that they played, they beat the Eagles, I think, one time. They just could not beat the Eagles. They swept them in 86, but 87, 88, they had a hard time beating the Eagles. So they wound up tied with the Eagles in 88. And because they lost 2 games to the Eagles in 88, the Eagles got the nod. The Eagles won the division because they got the tiebreaker over the Giants. They had the same identical record. Almost the same thing happened this season, because same thing would have happened if in the final game of the season, if the Giants lost to the Raiders, the Giants would have had a record of 11-5. They would have been tied with the Eagles. Eagles would have won the division because, once again, the Eagles had the head-to-head on the Giants. The Eagles beat the Giants 2 times during the season. But it started off well for the Giants. The Monday night game of the season, Raul Allegre kicked like a 52-yarder on Monday night. It wound up being a really good game. The Giants, if you ever check it out, if you ever got 2 hours to watch, I'm sorry. My dog is underneath my feet here, I think. Yeah, so I'm trying to adjust my feet here without stepping on my dog. He's laying on the ground. So I do apologize. But if you ever get a chance, there's it's about 2 hours, a little over 2 hours long. It's the YouTube, the Monday night game, first game of the season between the Giants playing in Washington. It was the Giants went up 14-0. The Redskins kept fighting back as you knew they were. The Redskins took a 24-21 lead. The Giants tied it up 24-24. And then the Giants went up, Raul Allegre kicked that 52-yarder, I believe. There was 6 seconds left, and by the time he got done kicking the ball, the time expired. The ball made it over the crossbar by like a yard, and the Giants walked off the field with the victory. It was a really a very exciting game, really good game. So the Giants started off 1-0 after an exciting opening Monday night victory. Then the following week, the Giants played the Detroit Lions at home. They won 24-14. So now the Giants are 2-0. The Phoenix Cardinals came to town, and the Giants opened up a can of whoop butt on them, and they beat them 35-7. So now the Giants are 3-0. Now, because now in 1989, we're talking the Dallas Cowboys were 1-15. They were not a good team. So this is one of the few times in history the Giants actually swept the Cowboys, right? They went to Dallas and they beat them 30-13. Although after this season, things would start changing a little bit. The Cowboys with Jimmy Johnson, he's starting his draft, his good draft picks, this, that, and the other thing. Things would start changing. All right, the Cowboys would start becoming a force in 1990 and on. Okay, so but the Giants did sweep the Cowboys this season. So in Game 4, they beat them 30-13 in Dallas. Now the Giants are 4-0. But okay, let me see if there's anything super. The Giants in Week 5 went to Philadelphia, and they lost. Shocking. Nothing super spectacular. I mean, the Giants had more yards than the Eagles. The Giants had one turnover, but the Eagles wind up winning. The Giants wind up kicking field goals, and the Eagles scored. Anthony Toney scored a 2-yard touchdown run late in the fourth quarter, and the Eagles wound up beating the Giants 21-19. Once again, the Giants just couldn't beat the Eagles. Yeah. The Giants actually, it's funny because you figure 2 times. 1989, the Giants went into Philadelphia. Giants were 4-0. Go into Philadelphia. They come out, they're 4-1. 1990, the next season, the Giants go into Philadelphia 10-0. 10-0. They come out 10-1. They lost. It was like 30-13. It was just unbelievable. But the Giants just could not beat the Eagles back then. I mean, it's the same thing now. The Giants can't beat the Eagles now either. So now the Giants are 4-1. Then they would play the Washington Redskins once again. Let's not forget the Redskins were a very good football team back then. Very good football team. They won the Super Bowl in 1987. They were going to win the Super Bowl again in 1991. They went to the championship game in 1986. They went to the Super Bowl in 1982, 1983. So the Redskins were a very good football team, and coached by Joe Gibbs, Hall of Fame coach. They were a very good team. So for the Giants to beat the Eagles 2 times was, for the Giants to beat the Redskins 2 times was pretty impressive. Was saying something. The Giants could beat the Cowboys and the Redskins. They just could not beat the Eagles. So the Giants beat the Redskins 20-17. So now the Giants are 5-1. The San Diego Chargers, the Giants went to play the Chargers in San Diego, and they won 20-13. So now the Giants are 6-1. Minnesota came to town the following week on Monday night. The Giants would beat Minnesota 24-14. So now the Giants are 7-1. Then the Giants would play the Phoenix Cardinals the following week, and the Giants would win 20-13. But you're starting to notice now we're right in the midst of the Giants scoring like 20 points a game. Right, everything was like just about 20 points a game. So the Giants lost. The Giants won to beat the Cardinals 20-13. So now the Giants are 8-1. But here is where the red flag starts coming in here, right? The following week, the Giants went out and they played the Rams in Los Angeles. They lost 31-10. Once again, played against a good team. They gave up. What did they give up? They gave up 400. They gave up 28 first downs, 445 yards of offense. The Giants had 6 rushing yards. 6. How many times did they run the ball? I mean, it's just a joke. This reminds me of the 1984 game when the Giants went out and played the Rams out in Los Angeles in 1984, and the Giants wound up with 8 yards rushing. What do they have here? Oh, actually, and the Giants were losing 31-3. Otis Anderson scored on a 1-yard rush to make it 31-10. So the Giants were losing 31-3. So I mean, the Rams really had the Giants on. The Rams had 28 first downs in this game. The Giants had 13. The Giants ran the ball 10 times for 6 yards. I mean, their offensive line was just not, was just not really good. Jim Everett was 23 out of 33, 295 yards. I mean, just, very solid performance. But, Cleveland Gary had 45 yards rushing for him. Greg Bell had 42 yards rushing. Robert Delping had 34 yards rushing. Buford McGee had 17. Jim Everett had 12 yards. Just had a bunch of guys, they ran the ball well. For the Giants, Phil Simms ran it from -1 yards. Otis Anderson ran 9 times for 7 yards. That was it. So it's ran the ball 10 times for 6 yards. Absolutely pathetic. Absolutely pathetic. But you can kind of see where there's a little chinks in the armor there where, the Giants, the kryptonite, the Giants' kryptonite was, possibly the Rams and the Eagles. Thankfully, the Giants didn't have to face the Eagles. Okay. In the, let's see here, in the playoffs. Yeah. What wound up happening was because this goes to show you how good the Rams were. The Rams beat the Giants twice, including the playoffs. The Rams also beat the Eagles in the playoffs in the wild card, which we're going to go over in a little bit. And so the Eagles beat the Giants. The Rams were beating the Giants. So good teams that scored a lot of points, like the Eagles with Randall Cunningham. They had a good offense back then. The Rams, who scored some points back then, that gave the Giants a hard time. All right, so let's see here. So after the Giants lost to the Rams 31-10, now the Giants are 8-2. The following week, the Seattle Seahawks would come to town. The Giants would win 15-3. Once again, they're not scoring any points, but the defense kept them in the game. They won 15-3, so now the Giants are 9-2. Then the Giants would lose back-to-back games. Right? They would go out and play the 49ers in San Francisco, and they would lose 24-34. Once again, they went up against a good, high-powered offense. They gave up 34 points, and amazingly, they actually scored 24 points against the eventual Super Bowl champions. But they lost 34-24. Now they're 9-3. Then they would lose once again to the Philadelphia Eagles. At home, they lost 24-17. Right? Once again, they scored 17 points. The Eagles had a good offense. They scored 24 points. They beat the Eagles, right? So I say, thankfully the Eagles wound up being 11-5, which the Giants finished 12-4. The Eagles wound up 11-5. So the Giants did wind up winning the division. But if they wound up tied with the Eagles would have got the division. The Giants would have made a wild card, right? Let's see here. So then the Giants finally won the final 3 games of the season. Okay, they went on. This game was the hit. If you remember, Gary Reason's jumping over on 4th down. I forgot the name of the running back for the Broncos. Hit him in midair. The guy's mouthpiece goes flying off. Snow's coming down at Mile High Stadium. What a game. What a great game. Giants beat the Broncos 14-7. I said due to that goal line stand. I don't think Lawrence Taylor played in that game. I think he was injured. But so the Giants won 14-7 on a game that, once again, they didn't score any points. They scored 14 points, just enough luckily enough just to win, right? So they won 14-7, so now they're 10-4. The following week, the Dallas Cowboys came to town. The Cowboys were a bad team. The Giants won 15-0. So now they're 11-4. So now the final game of the season, the Los Angeles Raiders and Bo Jackson came to town. If the Giants won, they won the division, right? So it was the same thing like in 88. Final game of the season. I think they were the road team, but they played the Jets at Giants Stadium. The Giants win, they win the division. Giants lost out of the playoffs. But same thing here. Giants final game of the season. Giants at home. Giants win, they win the division. They wind up they were winning 7-0. Dave Meggett ran a punt back for a touchdown, and then the Raiders scored, I think, a couple touchdowns, and the Raiders were actually winning. Yeah, the Raiders were winning 14-7 in the second quarter, but then after that, it was all Giants, and the Giants would wind up winning 34-17. So the Giants finished at 12-4, and they wind up winning their division because the Eagles wound up 11-5. Now, luckily for the Giants, the second to last game of the season, the Eagles lost to the New Orleans Saints, which gave them their 5th loss. If the Eagles had beaten the Saints and only had 4 losses, the Eagles won their final game of the season, which would have gave them 4 losses. The Giants 4 losses. Eagles would have won the division. But as I said, the Eagles had 5 losses. The Giants only had 4. And so thankfully, the Giants wound up, winning the winning the division with a record of 12-4. A very impressive 12-4. I said once again, it was pretty much carried by the defense. They said the offense was very the hard time running the ball. Did not have a super spectacular passing offense. Their offensive line was nothing super spectacular, and they paid for it. They wound up paying for it. In the playoff game when they wound up losing 19-13 in overtime. They They just 170 yards passing, 170 yards off of rushing. The defense kept them in the game, and they just, with the lack of offensive firepower, it cost them. Not to say that they beat the if they beat the Rams, that they would have gone and they would have wound up beating the 49ers, because let me see here. 49ers, what were they? 49ers were 14-2. So the championship game would have gone through San Francisco. So, I mean, if the Giants did wind up beating the Rams, the Giants would have gone on the road and played the 49ers, where the Giants lost, earlier in the season. It certainly doesn't mean they were going to lose, but, I mean, the 49ers were a very, very good team. And as I said, we were going to see in the Super Bowl that it was an absolute blowout in the Super Bowl. But let's see. What does Wikipedia say? Well, Wikipedia doesn't say much about the Giants here. The 1989 New York Giants season was the franchise's 65th season in the National Football League. After going 10-6 and suffering a heartbreaking final day elimination from the playoff game in 1988 against the Jets, the team went 12-4 and won the NFC East. The Giants were upset by the Los Angeles Rams in the NFC divisional playoff. I wouldn't say so much upset. The Rams kicked the crap out of them earlier in the season, and they didn't kick the crap out of the Giants in the playoff game, but they did enough to win, and you got to tip your hat to them. Good job, Rams. They did what they had to do. So let's see what does Wikipedia have to say here about the season here. Not too much. Let's see here. The 1989 season was the 70th regular season in the history of the National Football League. Before the season, NFL Commissioner Pete Rozelle announced his retirement. Paul Tagliabue was eventually chosen to succeed him, taking over on November 5th. Due to damage caused by the Loma Prieta earthquake to Candlestick Park, the New England Patriots at San Francisco 49er game on October 22nd was played at Stanford Stadium in Stanford. The season ended with the Super Bowl, where the 49ers defeated the Broncos 55-10 at the Louisiana Superdome. I mean, it was just a straight up massacre. But we had, let's see, in the AFC, the Buffalo Bills won the AFC East with a record of 9-7. In the AFC Central, we had three teams go to the playoffs. The Browns won with a record of 9-6-1. So they won the division. The Houston Oilers and the Pittsburgh Steelers both were 9-7. So they were the two wild card teams. And the Denver Broncos won the AFC West with a record of 11-5. So in the playoffs, the Pittsburgh Steelers won in overtime 26-23 over the Houston Oilers. So setting up in the divisional round, we had Buffalo, and the Browns beat Buffalo 34-20. 34-30. I do apologize. And then in the other one at Mile High Stadium, Denver beat Pittsburgh 24-23, setting up the another championship game between the Denver Broncos and the Cleveland Browns. This is the third championship game between the two teams in 4 seasons. 1986, 1987. 1986 was the drive. 1987 was the fumble. 1989, the Broncos just won 37-21. So it set the Broncos to the championship, the Super Bowl once again, where once again they would get blown out for the 4th time. So in the NFC, we had the Giants won the NFC East with a record of 12-4. The Eagles were 11-5, so the Eagles got one of the wild cards. Minnesota was 10-6, so they won the NFC Central. San Francisco was 14-2. They won the NFC West, and the Los Angeles Rams were 11-5. So they got the other wild card. Now let's see. But the Eagles were 11-5. The Rams were 11-5. But why the Eagles played at the Veterans Stadium, why the Eagles got the home game, was because Philadelphia was first NFC wild card ahead of the Rams based on better record against common opponents. The Eagles were 7-3 against common opponents. The Rams were somehow 5-4. So the Eagles had better common opponent record than the Rams did. So that's why the Eagles hosted the wild card game. It didn't wind up matter. The Rams wound up winning anyway. So the Rams on December 31st, the wild card game at Veterans Stadium, the home of the Eagles, the Rams went in and won 21-7. Now that was the problem with Buddy Ryan and his Eagles. He got his Eagles to some playoffs, 1988, they lost in the to the Bears 20-12 in the Fog Bowl game, 1989. They lost to the Rams 21-7 at Veterans Stadium. Then it was either 1990 or 91. They lost at home once again to the Redskins in the playoffs. So Buddy Ryan got this team who was loaded with talent to the playoffs. And just when they got to the playoffs, he never won any playoff games. So, and this was another indication. I mean, the Rams beat them 21-7. So sending the Rams to the divisional round, where of course they played the Giants in an overtime, with Flipper Anderson catching that 30-yard touchdown pass from Jim Everett. He caught the pass through the end zone, up the tunnel, into the locker room. He just kept running. The Rams won 19-13. In the other divisional round, the 49ers whooped up on Minnesota 41-13. In the championship game, the 49ers beat the Rams 30-3, just totally dismantled. And I said, the thing was just kind of like, I don't know. It was just like a gut punch, because it's like you look at the Rams, how well they played against the Giants the week before, and how I guess maybe they were worn out. I don't know. But I mean, in the wild card game, the Rams looked very good against a very good Philadelphia team. And on the road, the Rams won 21-7 in Philadelphia, and they looked very good. Same thing against the Giants. They were the better team, okay, in the divisional round against the Giants. Once again, on the road against a very good New York Giants team, the Rams looked the better team, and they won in overtime 19-13. Kudos to them for the second straight week. But then they go in the championship game, and they played the 49ers, and it was just like, I don't know, it's like a bunch of kindergartners out there. I mean, it was just an embarrassment. It was an absolutely horrible championship game. 30-3. What an absolute joke. As you just like looking, it's like, man, that's not the same team that beat the Giants the week before. You know, I mean, I just remember saying that to myself. It's like, well, why didn't they play like that the week before? I mean, the Giants would be in the championship if they played that horrible. It was just, anyway, it set up the Super Bowl between the 49ers and the Broncos. And I mean, it was just, it was 27-3 at halftime. Actually, this is the first time that in Super Bowl history a team scored 14 points in every quarter. I think the 49ers missed an extra point, I think it was. But other than that, they scored 2 touchdowns in every quarter. So if they made all the extra points, it would have been 56-10. Because they missed an extra point, they wound up winning 55-10 in the Super Bowl. I mean, it was just, and the 49ers were really, really good. So they had the repeat, but 1990 they went for the three-peat, and we know that didn't happen, right? Because the Giants took care of that. There will be no three-peat. But the 49ers in the Super Bowl had 28 first downs. What do they have? 461 yards of offense. The Denver Broncos had 167 yards. Basically, the 49ers had 300 more yards of offense than the Broncos did. And it was just an absolute horrible game. Horrible game just to watch. But it is what it is. It just goes to show you how good the San Francisco 49ers were back then, like in 88, 89. They got, back to back. And I said they went for the three-peat. Now, I don't know if they would have won, because they would have been, if they did beat the Giants, okay, in the 1990 championship game, they went to the Super Bowl against the Bills. That would have been tough. I don't know if they would have been able to beat the Bills the way the Giants did, because the Giants controlled the clock, ran the ball, controlled the clock. I don't know if the 49ers could do that, because the 49ers didn't have a phenomenal running game in 1990, from what I can remember. They were more of a passing game. With obviously with like Taylor and Rice and all. So I don't know if they could have beaten the Bills, but anyway, it just goes to show you how good the 49ers were. But so that pretty much wraps up the 1989 season. As the Giants won the division. They were 12-4. The defense was very, very good, rather stingy. It's just the offensive line. They couldn't run the ball. They had nothing super spectacular with the passing game. The defense kept them in a lot of games. And just, certain teams they just couldn't beat. Teams that had good offenses, they just couldn't beat. They couldn't beat the 49ers. They couldn't beat the Rams, had a good offense. They couldn't beat the Eagles. Once again, they lost another 2 games to the Eagles. And it cost, and in the end, it cost them. But as I said, we know things would turn around in the 1990 season. The defense even got even better than it was in 1989, and things would be a whole heck of a lot different. That's why the Giants would wind up winning not only their second Super Bowl, but it would be their sixth championship in the 1990 season. So that pretty much wraps up the 1989 season. I said I'll be back again tomorrow with the 1990 season for the New York Giants, which just happened to be the 66th season in the history of the New York Giants. I'll see you then.